This is a short video on experiment 3, position, velocity, and acceleration. You can see the apparatus here. There's an air track, and on the air track there's a cart with a reflector on it, and that will reflect sound waves. Those sound waves or pulses are coming from a sonic ranger, which is held down at one end of the track. Let's start the track up so you can see the motion. To do that, we'll need to turn the air on, and in this case the supply is located down here. And we'll set the air to something like 12 o'clock position on the knob, or maybe 1 o'clock. Not too high, and obviously not too low. You can see the cart now is moving with relatively low friction, and it's not a good idea to let it bounce into the end and actually hit the sonic ranger. Another part of the apparatus you can see here is a step block. Initially you want to level the track, so if we stop the cart and the track is level, the cart should stay in position. It can be a little tricky to get it stopped exactly, and it's definitely tricky to get it leveled. To level the apparatus, at one end you'll see there are 2 feet with screws holding the legs in or holding the legs up, and by turning these both in the same direction, by turning these screws both in the same direction, you can raise or lower one end to level it. Alright, so during the experiment, you're going to want to use the step block, place it under one end of the apparatus. And here we've got roughly 1 centimeter higher now on that end, and the track is tilting away from the sonic ranger. If we were to bring the cart up to one end and release it, you can see it now accelerates down the end of the track, bounces off, and we'll come back up. And after that bounce and return back down and bounce again, that section right there will be the kind of data that you would want to take. So to collect data, you'll need to use a couple of programs. The software that you'll need to use are the Logger Pro templates. In this case, you'll need to use a program that runs the Sonic Ranger. Here it's on the desktop, it's just labeled Sonic Ranger. Let me open that up so you can see what that looks like. And this just has some preliminary or earlier data that was stored in here when the program was last run. So first thing you want to do is go to Experiment, and then go down here where it says Data Collection. And if you read through the procedure, you'll see it tells you to set this so that it's taking 20 samples per second. It's already set, that's good. And to sample the data for 15 seconds. So let's just enter 15 seconds there. Hit done, and it's now set up. And it also tells you to adjust this y-axis scale. Right now it's going from 1 to 0. We're going to go from 1 to -1 meters, and just click on that bottom entry. For example, I'm going to enter -1 here, and hit enter on your keyboard, and now you can see the scale has adjusted from 1 to -1. Let's tell it to collect some data. Collect. And it's going to ask us, do we want to save it? Now let's just erase that and continue. If you go down here, you can actually hear the Sonic Ranger. Might be able to hear the Sonic Ranger clicking. And you can also see that when I move the camera there, I kind of disturbed the Ranger. Let me start moving the cart. And let's just stop. And let's tell it one more time to collect. Let's see if I can get it so you can see the screen and the cart. Started collecting, start moving the cart, goes up, it's pretty close to the Ranger, comes back down, bounces off the end, and so that section where it went up and just returned and bounced is this first parabola you see here, and now it's stopped data collection. Now the other thing you'll need to do, actually before you take data, in addition to leveling and doing some other things, you also need to make sure that you zero the Sonic Ranger. In other words, decide the location where 0 corresponds to on this plot. And the manual tells you to move the cart to 0.7 meters on the track. And the idea is that you could try to line up the sail, or the reflector with that 0.7, but that's pretty hard to do. Instead, line up the front of the cart, which you can do very, very closely to 0.7 meters. And with you holding the cart there, so it can't move, then go over and on the And then on Logger Pro, go to Experiment. Actually, on Logger Pro then, all you need to go to is hit this little button here with the cart held at 0.7 meters, hit that. It will then zero it, or set that to 0, and then you're good to go. And when we collect data now, we'll see that it's chosen a new location, and that will pass through 0, or that location where it was 0.7 meters. So fairly simple apparatus, fairly easy to get and collect data. Once you get this data, you'll be able to just, you can always hit the stop button to stop it. You can just highlight the data that you want, copy it and paste it, put it into Excel. Anyway, you'll need, you can copy it and paste it and put it into Excel, and you'll want to follow the instructions in the lab manual for doing that. So actually, fairly simple experiment. Now, setting up the apparatus, there's a few things that you should keep in mind. One is, make sure that the air is not turned too high or too low. If it's too high, you'll tend to get not very good position readings, in fact. Another thing is, if you're trying to get good measurements, it's important to have the sail on the cart so that it's ranged roughly perpendicular to the cart's motion. Finally, down here on the Sonic Ranger, this part of the Ranger is actually a speaker which sends out a sound pulse, and also a microphone that picks up the reflection of that pulse off the cart. That's what it uses to figure out where the cart is. And if this is tilted too far forward, like this, you're not going to get a good measurement of the position of the cart. And now you might think that it's best to have it perpendicular, and that's often a good solution, but you may also find that you need to tilt it back just a little bit. And one other thing to watch out for is when you're working on this experiment, if you put your hands in the way of the sound beam, or your lab partner leans into it, you might get a reflection off of them, or your hand, or the person, rather than off the cart. So you want to kind of stand back. It's also not a good idea to have the monitor turned too close, or brought too close to the cart, because that also can produce reflection. So if you're not getting a good reading of the cart's position, you see that the plot produced by Logger Pro does not look like actually what you're seeing with your eyes. You might want to move things and stand back a little bit from the apparatus and try adjusting the orientation or the tilt on Sonic Ranger. Of course, if you run into trouble, go get your TA.